Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Africa Creative Tech webinar series dedicated to the dynamic African creative economy, ecosystem, and its enablers, where we intend to blend creativity, technology, and venture capital. My name is Denis Belkovich, co-founder and general partner at Fuelarts, and my co-host during this series is Oluneye Oluvole. Hi, Olu.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis, for that opening introduction. I am excited at the start of this innovative vision, and I'm the founder of Story Chest Group in Canada, and also an international best-selling author. I'm a keynote speaker, storyteller, spoken word. Over to you, Dennis. Let's kickstart this amazing journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Also, today we're excited to launch the Africa Creative Tech webinar series dedicated to the dynamic African creative economy ecosystem and its enablers. Over the next 2 months, you will have the opportunity to learn more about Africa through its entrepreneurs and investors. This series is made possible thanks to the partnership between our companies, between Fuelarts and Story Chest, led by Olu. Together, we have announced recently the Africa Creative Tech Initiative, committed to refining educational approaches, integrating innovative business models, and exploring a wealth of initiatives designed to foster growth and innovation in African creative tech. Olu?
Yes. So, thank you, Dennis, for that amazing intro. So, Africa is at the heart of a digital and cultural renaissance where creativity merges with cutting edge technology and tradition fuels innovation. With the world's youngest population and a vibrant cultural landscape, Africa has a unique opportunity to lead the global creative and tech industries. These webinar series, as you will see, will spotlight the pivotal role creative technology plays in shaping Africa's future and its emergence as a powerhouse in the global innovation economy. From AI driven solutions to digital arts, gaming, and film, we're going to explore how creative tech is solving real world challenges, generating economic value, and amplifying Africa's cultural narratives on the global stage. So, Africa's rich cultural heritage, combined with technological advancements, positions Africa as a global treasury of innovation. These series, as you will see, will delve into how Africa's creative industries are not only driving sustainable development, but also forging powerful international partnerships like you're seeing between Story Chest and Fuel Arts and investments. Join us as we explore the transformative power of creative tech in Africa's ascent on the global stage. Back to you, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you, Olu. So, today we are thrilled to begin our conversation with the key figure behind creative tech in South Sudan. We're happy to invite Yine Yenki Nyika, a board member of the National Communication Authority of South Sudan and co-founder of the Go Girls ICT initiative, with nearly a decade of experience in STEM mentorship and innovative digital inclusion initiatives. Yine is a respected leader in her field across the African countries and South Sudan in particular. Hi, Yine. Thank you for being our first guest of the African Creative Tech webinar series.
Hi.
Hi, Denise. It's such an honor to be the first and an honor to be here, honestly. Yeah, I'm privileged.
Thank you, Yine.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm privileged.
Okay, so Olu, heading to you. Please
Yes.
start the conversation.
Okay, I can't wait to start. Okay, Yine, I know you're ready for us, and we're going to start off with looking at the strategic development for Africa's startup ecosystem.
Mm.
How can Africa's startup ecosystems be strategically developed to support sustainable growth in STEM and creative industries? What roles should policy makers, investors, and industry leaders play in overcoming the challenges like gender bias and financial inclusion? Thank you, Yine.
Thank you, Olu, for that question. I want to start with a story. So, this year in March happened to be our fourth edition of what we call the town hall. Okay, fourth edition of the town hall event. It's normally a yearly event where the sector invites all different stakeholders to engage and discuss issues pertaining to the sector and also find solutions together. And from time to time, I think we've come to see this as a very good actually platform to engage with the public and also to account. But interestingly, this year we introduced a very interesting segment, which was called Connecting South Sudan Innovation Lab. Connecting South Sudan Innovation Lab. And our idea and concept was around the fact that from year to year, when we organize this kind of event, we see a lot of young people coming in. And I was at the forefront of this with my other colleagues in the sector to see how we could pull out together an innovation lab where young people could come and present their different ideas. But it was very interesting that at the end of the innovation lab segment, we had quite a number of interesting ideas, but of course we had 3 which came as top. And I think particularly this year, we're also very lucky to have bodies like the African Telecommunications Union, the Secretary General was around, and also the East African Communications Organization. But of course, at the end, awards and everyone was happy, people went home. So of course, when we are in events, we're always happy, but I always say reality on ground is different. So personally, the fact that I was in contact with all these key ideas, I loved actually, like I think almost up to 5. So in an entire process of about 60 innovators who submitted in their ideas, we had like 4 women. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. And out of the 4 who submitted with different ideas, at the end, we realized we had one group which was 2 females and 1 male. So they were the ones who went through. The idea was very legit. They presented, and I think they also deserve the platform to at least showcase to the rest that they're also capable of something to do. So being given the opportunity. But I think at the end, when all these were all happy, these are viable ideas, they could be supported, they could be implemented. It's like the fire went down. And one key challenge that cropped out is we lack intellectual properties as a country. So we don't have any law in place. And right away, I knew these young innovators with their incredible ideas, ranging from how to provide very easy access solutions to water in South Sudan, to agriculture, to entertainment, to supply chain. So it was just a range. But of course, I knew that the fact that these ideas have been presented on the national stage, these innovators are going to face a very significant challenge of someone with money running with the ideas and implementing it. And for me, I think with that in mind, immediately, I remember us as Go Girls, because we've been around for quite a time. We immediately, of course, tried to engage to see how we could just protect the ideas at a national level, at least reserve their names, reserve the entire idea, legally protect it for now, because as a country, the fact that we lack the necessary laws and policies in place, we just knew this is a very huge obstacle, because from time to time, even people who already have existing ideas, for example, keep saying, my idea is great, but I'm scared that someone will duplicate it. So it's like, how can I trust someone else with my idea before he runs with it and I get nothing out of it? So as a country, I've seen that as one of our huge, as South Sudan, I've seen that as one of our huge obstacle. And from our side, I hopefully expect it to change, because I believe also, and from interactions with my colleagues in the region, they from time to time almost mention the same thing, that this is something that we are grappling with, intellectual property rights. So I feel like regionally, if we are to really develop the sector in terms of the startup ecosystem, I think as governments, and I think this is something from time to time that we keep re-echoing, that we need laws in place, we need policies in place that have to protect, for example, people like us. Even us, initially as goggles, when we began, I remember we were working with someone who was connected, and before we know it, we realized the person was replicating almost replicating the project ideas that we were doing. And from our side, the only way to protect ourselves was just to pull back and observe. And then when this person reached somewhere and they couldn't do anything, then we came on board. So that's what I can add for now.
Thank you, Yine, so
Thank
much.
you.
Let's continue exploring STEM in Africa. By the way, just for those who might not know, STEM in terms of education stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So let's add the angle of gender equality and emerging technologies. What innovative approaches are the most effective in advancing gender equality with Africa's STEM and creative tech sectors, in your opinion? Or in other words, how can we dismantle that barriers and ensure equitable access to financial opportunities for women?
Wow. So gender equality, I think, go back to how we started as Go Girls, because I think we got so wrapped up around, well, at first I really didn't think it was gender equality. I think it was just the fact that you see a problem and you feel like you want to provide a solution. But with time, I realized actually that was what we were advocating for without even knowing that we were advocating for. So from when we initially started Go Girls, and I think this takes me back when I got my first employment. So my life is full of so many stories, but I think it takes me back to when I got my first employment at the University of Juba. I'll make it short so that we don't spend the whole day. I had one girl doing computer science, one girl doing IT, and I walked in, I was like, wow, this feels like the time when I was at the university where there were very few girls. And among the few girls then in my university, I think I was among the top of my class, very active, very engaged. I'll always ask the questions. I'll always take lead in discussion. So I think I also created my own personal niche as Yine, even when I was a student, that so many industry leaders, so many lecturers in my class even saw me for who I am, and they always came out to encourage and also push me forward to platforms. So here I come to South Sudan in 2014, and my first conversation was actually with my boss, who was the dean of the college. And I think for an hour, I don't know whether I was ranting or complaining, but I was like, how can we have one girl? How can I? He was like, South Sudan is a very patriarchal society. So he started explaining to me the stereotypes that relates to, of course, doing courses like ICT related. It's always considered a course for men. Even interaction with, from the two girls that I had, one was active, the other one was completely off. So even her level of participation, her interest, even when you're trying to guide her, was very low. But the other one was doing very excellent. So I think personally, my focus shifted on the one who was a little bit weak to see how she could improve best. But from my interaction with with my dean, he decided to actually write a letter, I remember, to the VC to make me head department of computer science. So being made head department of computer science when you're just less than a month and you're fresh from the university, I started having like personal fear. Oh my God, what am I supposed to do? What are the expectations of, for example, of a head of department? I didn't know. So I was I was in a mode of panic, but I was like, no, you can handle this. So with all this happening, fast forward, I think that was the time South Sudan had, no, not South Sudan, but I think that was the time national, I think we had a recognized Director General of the National Communications Authority, who also happened to be my same dean. So my same dean was appointed to be the director general of National Communications Authority. So immediately he was given that position. We all know that all the regulatory bodies have a fulfilled mandate when it comes to international bodies like like the International Telecommunications Union. And of course, one of the mandates and objectives that was, I think, so much highlighted was girls in ICT and engagement of girls and women to also pick interest in STEM. So comes 2015, which was where we're supposed to celebrate girls in ICT, and he was like, I want you to bring on board a few of the girls. So I backtracked to like first year, second year, third year, and to the fourth years, to the two girls that I had. We went to celebrate our girls in ICT. So we reach in the room, we sit. Before we know it, of course, officials, cameras, speeches, and everyone was like, since we have university students, we want them to tell us about what ICT is all about. And nobody could stand up. I was like, I am not taking this embarrassment. I am not going home embarrassed as the head of department where my students can't speak. So I took over the mic, I spoke, and when we left that event, I said, I think it's about time I started an initiative to mentor girls. So I talked to my colleague who was also in my department, and I was like, I think it's time for us to really understand why girls in South Sudan shy away. Because it's like my story at the university also resonated with her story. And she was like, in my class, we were few. Some girls were performing, some girls were not performing. So it's almost like the same story everywhere. So how do we come together and really try to understand the issues that we have in our society, in our communities as girls? And of course, fast forward, I think a lot has changed. We call ourselves now as the grandmothers who have been pushing for the inclusion of girls almost on all different spectrums from national. We've moved from community level to national level, if I can determine. Even at the community level, we've moved to, how should we say, some of the different innovative approaches that we integrated, of course, in our programming as Go Girls was engaging the families of these girls to really understand what is it that makes these girls step back. And from time to time, we realize, of course, most families say that technology has spoiled their kids. They are copying what is not right. So I think there is the good side of technology that they see, and there's also the bad side of technology that they were seeing. And now for us, initially when we came, we're like, now we want your children to learn how technology helps them, how they can also create their own opportunities within the sector. And they're like, no, this has been spoiling our children. We don't want. And for girls, it was now more amplified, because they're like, no, but everyone tells you science is not for girls. Mathematics is not for girls. So how are you going to convince me that my child or my daughter is fit to actually do computer science or to do IT, or even to be, how should I say, to do the arts and the sciences? And with Time for Girls, we always consider ourselves that we do STEAM, which is which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, because we feel like when we brought the components of art, it brought a lot of life and excitement to the participants, to the parents, even to the educators. Yeah.
Thank you for your inspiring story. It's all about stories. It's all about storytelling. And Olu, as one of the best storytellers I've ever met, knows that for sure. So I'm heading the conversation to Olu.
Yes. So thank you, Yine. You brilliantly, shared your story of how you went into technology. Not only that, you then became a mentor, like for younger girls. You discussed some of the challenges that you faced regarding how young girls, women enter tech and the creative industries. I just want to touch on how can these challenges, you mentioned one part of it, integrating arts into STEM. How can these challenges be addressed on both local and a continental scale that would give visibility and encouragement for women to come into tech and the creative industries?
I think the first that I start with, mentorship will always never go out of fashion. Yeah, so I think overcoming most of these barriers, really mentorship is very, very important. And from time to time, I think mentorship keeps taking different forms. Like that's from really my experience of implementing different projects and different engagements. It's like you engage with group A. Group A is completely something different. Then you bring in group B. They also present to you completely different challenges. And from time to time, you have to almost craft yourself to meet the need of different groups. So for me, first thing to overcoming these barriers is really, really, really mentorship, because I've seen it work in South Sudan from year in, year out. At first, when we started, I was almost becoming frustrated, because it's like sometimes you take a bigger number of participants, you've invested resources, you've invested time, you've invested efforts, you put your mind in, and then maybe you end up with the 2 or 3 who are really good. But I realize also these 2 or 3 have also like become like my source of inspiration, because if from the beginning you're able to see one person evolve and grow under your wings and they're just able to fly, I feel like that's just an indication that you shouldn't stop. So for me, mentorship is one thing. Number 2 that I think I always emphasize a lot is, as women, we have to really speak up a lot. And for me personally, as an individual, I always tell young people, I'm still young, but I always tell young people, even if you send me an invitation at night, I'll show up. I'll show up because my presence matters. Much as we advocate for leaders to be in these spaces, one thing that I've come to learn is we are very few in that space. So that means the few of us who are present, doesn't matter however busy you are. If it's for young people, I'll just clear that table and say, I am present. And I think significantly, September was just a crazy month for me. Like from Monday to Friday, it's like I was running from one event to another to just engage, speak, advocate. Because one thing that I've come to learn is, if you're not in the room, sometimes you think policymakers know, or people who are working on this document, but at the end you realize they don't know. So I think, let me just take you to a backstory. I think around mid-month September, we were working on the digital transformation strategy for South Sudan, the National Digital Transformation Strategy for South Sudan. And when we were reviewing and looking through, it was very interesting that we realized one key component was missing, and that was the digital inclusion of women. And we thought that was very obvious. And our interaction with actually the team that even collected the survey there, when we pointed that out, they're like, actually, we had only 8% of the women who filled the form. It means 92% were men. And I was like, exactly. That's the problem that we are always struggling with. So how do we make sure that we prioritize the inclusion of women? Then there's also a special group, of course, persons with disabilities. There are very many. And all over, for example, the news in South Sudan from time to time, you see someone with disability is requesting to pay another person, for example, to sit for their exams, or to write for them their exams, or to read for them something when they're trying to apply. And I was like, doesn't that ring a bell? So for me, being in rooms is top notch. That's the only way we can advocate. Of course, the other thing that I want to highlight is, of course, another way of overcoming the barriers is, because I know in our community from time to from time to time, and I think it's still, much as in other African countries, it's there, but I think with time, it's people are trying to understand. But here, the notion of still a woman is perfectly fit to be in the kitchen, it's still very much echoed. If someone meets you on the road, maybe at 5, 6, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing here? I thought you're supposed to be in the kitchen cooking." Not being maybe on the streets if you're running, for example, your small business, engaging with people. So it's still like, you're, for example, how should I say? You're a woman with, how should I say? You're not, you're, should I say wife material? you're not fit to be a wife because women are not supposed to be out. It's men who are supposed to be out. So it's like, even if someone doesn't want to say it, there's a way they say it in a very subtle, like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be at home. So they're already trying to communicate that you're supposed to be somewhere. But from time to time, I've also learned to tell girls that if I go for an event and I know the event closes at 8, I'll always be out at 8. And for me, with my family, luckily, should I say luckily, I'm not yet married, but maybe when I get married in the future, those dynamics would change. But I was like, I have to only show up because some things are discussed when the event is over. So I don't want to miss out. And I want to also be like the voice who will come and re-echo things that you've missed. So if I miss, I'll have nothing to tell you. And I think from the different forums that have evolved in our engagements, from Goggles has, I think the birth of Goggles led to the creation of other initiatives within South Sudan. And I think one interesting story is, of course, there is Women in STEM in South Sudan, which is a forum for all women leaders. You can be in petroleum, in technology, where from time to time we discuss issues that challenge women's stereotypes. And of course, every woman shares her story of how they have overcome. Then I think our recent baby, which is the Women Engineers South Sudan, and the focus of Women Engineers South Sudan was specifically to look into, of course, some of the key barriers, which is we realize some of the environments where women work are actually the deterring factors why women step back in creatives. I know of a friend, she's a very, I call her an artist. She has one of the most melodious voices. But ever since she became a mother, it's like, that's it for her. We no longer see her on stage. She no longer has events, and it's a good thing, but it's a good thing to just say, you know what, maybe let me focus on one element. But we're like, she's a great talent, and she has just stepped back. And how many girls were looking onto her? Definitely very many. So I think also from time to time as women, we are trying to ask ourselves, how do we, among ourselves, how do we learn to strike a balance so that we don't, it's like we don't vanish, we exist much as we have other things happening in our lives. So yeah.
Thank you, Yine.
Thank you, Yine. Before Dennis, I know you're going to jump into the next question. I just want to, just thank Yine for a moment for what, the efforts that she has put into getting visibility for women, and I can totally relate with that. The amount of energy, the discouragement at times, and also, having to carry that burden of passing the baton next to the next generation. And what I'm taking away from the last question she answered is her strategy of engage, speak, and advocate. And with that, I want to hand over back to you, Dennis. I know you're itching to ask Yine her next question.
Yes, thank you. All of your comments and the way how you summarize people's ideas is always brilliant. I believe Yine also admits that. Actually, my next question should have been about mentorship as a catalyst for success. Like, what are the best practices for implementing effective mentorship program that can accelerate the growth of young entrepreneurs in Africa? But you have partly replied to this question. That's why. I just had to think about something else, and I just wanted to shift to more practical angle. Started asking you about financials. Everyone is interested in equality and financials, the two main things that support any ecosystem. But if you have like some direct cases you'd like to mention about mentorship, Yine, please feel free to mention it. Otherwise, my question will be about the finance, like what strategies can be employed to increase financial inclusion and access to capital for women and youth-led startups in Africa's creative and tech industries in South Sudan and beyond.
So I think let me start with, I think I can shed a little bit of light on some strategies really in relation to mentorship. And I think this ties to my own, I think this again ties back to my own mentorship, because I mean to my own lessons of life. So when I was reflecting back on my own personal journey as Yine, I feel like I wouldn't have become Yine if I didn't go through certain things that actually happened to me at the university. So I think one key element, because for me, I always love to tell my story that my interest was actually to make medicine. I never thought that I could find myself doing any tech related. That was not for me. Like, I wrote it off that this sector was not for me, but somehow I found myself I found myself doing a course, networking, sponsored by Cisco. I couldn't refuse because they said they were interested in girls who are good in mathematics, and I was like, I was one of them. But for me, I think a lot changed. Immediately I stepped into that course. I met a friend, and this friend actually became like my guide. So she was telling me, since you're doing this course, I'm already doing my degree course. I will give you some tips how to actually excel in this course. So more of her questions were actually thrown back to me. What's your goal as an individual? What's your study style? That was what she was asking me. And I was like, I love to study at night when everyone has slept, and then sleep during the day. And she was like, okay, good. So we know your study style. So she was like, now, since we are at the university is not, it's not about you just reading and writing and keeping things to yourself. It's about you discussing and just going out to share your knowledge and learn from others. So for me, I think right now when I reflect on it, I was like, from time to time, universities actually have like orientation programs for students, but it's like they never think of bringing people like my friend because if I didn't meet her, I wouldn't know how to navigate and even move beyond just the scholarship that had gotten to do networking to move to computer science. So for me, I felt like that relationship gave me like the energy, the push to say, you know what, you can think beyond, because I had someone to look unto. And of course, when I was having my courses, I mean, when I moved from that course to my bachelor's degree in computer science, which was also a recommendation of my instructor, I felt when I moved to computer science, because I already had someone who was guiding me, it was very easy for me to position myself on what do I want to achieve. For example, at the end of my 3-4 years course, how do I make myself being seen, which majority of the girls didn't know how they could position themselves to be seen. How do you speak up? They didn't know, but I knew because I already got that opportunity. And of course, going forward, I realized we also had things like, of course, opportunities for internship or training. But for me, even when I remember when I went for my internship, I had so many questions where I was doing my internship where they couldn't answer. And they were telling me there's a certain specific way that somebody who does, for example, computer science is supposed to present themselves. And I remember there was a time I went into an argument with the manager saying, no, I could be different, my interests could be different. But the fact that he didn't know beyond what he knew, I felt that perhaps became a limitation to others, not for me. Because for me, somehow I had a vague figure of maybe I could find myself here, or maybe I could move beyond. And that now takes me directly to finance. So when I was at university with my friends, we founded a tech startup in our third year. Yes. Yeah, we were rich, poor. So we founded a tech startup as young people. We launched it. We were very hardworking. 4 girls, 2 gents. We were making money. We knew how to market. We knew how to sell our ideas. We knew how to pitch. I don't know how we learned that, but I think it was the raw of learning on the streets, which we did. But at the end, some of us had to quit because when we made money, I think we didn't know how to handle the money. So at the end, some of us came to realize that the money had actually been diverted to build a church. So with that, some of us had to quit and look at the next options. But of course, for me, as someone who always loves to take lessons out of so many things, I was asking myself, if we had gotten an opportunity, or if we had been financially trained on how, okay, you've started a startup, this is how you handle finances, if this is how you make, if this is the revenue that you get, this is how you're supposed to plan your money, this is how you're supposed to save, this is how you're supposed to keep records. As founders of an initiative, it would have been very easy. But the fact that we didn't have that, that was the end of the startup. We all, should I say, scattered, and we left. So for me, I decided to come back to South Sudan and settle in and figure my life afresh. But coming back to South Sudan, it's like you're moving from 100 to 0. That is also what happened. So here, when it comes to finances and strategies and access to funds, it's completely something different for women. As someone who runs a tech startup, it has been actually, I think it has been one of the most hardest thing to always get access to resources. You will pitch, and 100% your ideas are excellent, but you don't get the money. And from time to time, we've had even conversations with some of the development partners, and are like, look, if SDG 5 says gender equality, it looks like your aim is not about gender equality, like the broader picture of gender equality, but your aim is to say that maybe so and so exists, and so and so exists. And somehow that's, in a way, that's, I think, in a way that looks, how should I say? In a way it looks that so and so exists with the initiative we are supporting. But when you look deeper into the issue, that's not the support, because of like the challenges that I face as a startup. I need a boost. But of course, one thing that I've come to learn, development partners also can't do that alone without the government stepping in. And this same month, we were having those conversations of how actually the government can be the one to carry the torch of saying, how do we support startups in South Sudan? Because from time to time, different ideas are cropping up, different creatives are coming up within the sector, but it's like people are getting demoralized because they are not getting the support that they are not getting. People are getting demoralized because they don't know how to grow their startups. So initiatives beyond what they know, because I feel like scaling is completely something different. Sometimes you need someone to hold your hand, but without that person holding your hand, it's very hard for you to scale beyond. You could have an excellent idea, but how do I bring that idea back to reality? So I remember during our discussion again this month, still under the digital transformation strategy, there was a particular pillar that was focusing on, of course, startups and digital businesses. And I remember in one of our conversations, they're like, yeah, I think we need to push the government to at least allocate a budget. And when I was in the room, I had a chance to interact with someone from the Ministry of Finance. And when he mentioned a very small figure that maybe if he was like, oh, on the national budget, maybe we'll allocate this certain percentage. And I was like, which criteria, for example, did you use to define that percentage of the budget that you want to give startups like us? Because right now, my needs are many. And when I see my initiatives, I see a possibility of employing so many young people. But I'm not able to do that because I need financial support. So we were just trying to pull ropes, and he was like, if you want more, just go and ask the Minister of Finance. I said, next time I'll visit. But of course, another thing, I think financial literacy is really very, very, very important. Now this is not about me, but a very young man who is in the, I call it informal sector, who does border business. He was one of my friends. And one time he told me that in a day, he actually makes a lot of money. And I couldn't believe, because I was like, you making a lot of money? I was like, yes. But I was like, you look or you behave like someone who really doesn't have any resources. You behave like someone who doesn't have any funds as an individual. And he was like, no, I actually make money. So we agreed for a month that every single day he makes money, he remits to me. And I was shocked with the amount of money this young man was making. And at the end, I remember I was like, wow, you actually make, at the end, actually, I think one key element that I took was like, in the informal sector, we have a lot of young people who make money, because in South Sudan, the highest percent, which is up to 70%, are young people. They are making money, but they don't know how to put their money into proper use. That's also another thing. So I make this, I have the money, I how should I say, swindle it. I don't have any vision of how do I grow this money? How do I put my money into proper use that tomorrow I could do something bigger? So I realized financial literacy is actually, it's lacking among us. Even we who are running startups, at some point we feel like we need even more financial literacy trainings to see how we can even boost our own businesses to grow beyond nonprofits. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I personally love your question to that representative of the ministry about the percentage. So how is the percentage defined? We at Fuelarts and Story Chest will be happy to partly reply to this question, since we are developing an index for the creative economies of the African countries. So that index will show the growth, hopefully growth, not decline. And based on that index, the minister will decide himself or herself, respectively, if they should if they should make that percentage bigger, of financing that startup industry. We are pretty sure that once every governmental or private official sees the growth of the industry, and that both the country and private individuals can benefit from it, from marketing and financial and sustainability side, they will increase that percentage, because they will see the outcome from that investments. Also, I personally love the haven't I talking too much, but anyway, I personally love the examples when you said that the youth of South Sudan are making money, but they do not know what to do with it. That's why you have to implement not only the programs for young entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, but also for young investors, for those who are making money from the benefits that country produces, so they could make wise decisions based on transparent information, also based with the startups to create the circulation system of support. Meanwhile, your former colleague, Emmanuel, sends you greetings. And also Jorge, hi Jorge, hola, from Beat Basel, one of the uh, top companies behind the success of South Florida in Web3 and crypto development. Bit Basel here to support. Yeah, we're pretty
Thank
sure Bit
you.
Basel is
Thank
always
you.
here to support all good initiatives. Thank you, Anna from Ecuador, for your
Yes.
wishes. Yes, and I'm uh, so Olu, your turn to a long-awaited
Yeah.
turn
Thank,
to ask the question.
okay. Thank you so much, Dennis, for sharing, some of the comments that are coming in from all over the world. And that's to show you how much we have been able to, impact and engage a global community when it comes to, redefining the African creative tech narrative. And I really am so impressed with, before I go into my next question, I'm so impressed with the insights that you have given to us, which have been from, the takeaways of your experience. We see, intellectual property. We also look at what Dennis mentioned, how do we capture the investment of these young entrepreneurs in the informal sector into probably angel investors, starting to grow them. And that's what Africa Creative Tech initiative is all about, the programs that we have, and also looking at financial literacy. And from what Dennis also mentioned, these are the core pillars of this initiative. And we're so elated and proud that we have a woman driving this vision in South Sudan that would help transform South Sudan based off of your experience. So I'm going to go to the next question, and my question is going to come into how we can harness the creative industries for societal transformation. You mentioned something about a lady who'd had a talent, and then all of a sudden, you're not hearing her. What was the problem? How have we lost a great talent like that? So how do you envision the future of the creative industry in South Sudan and Africa as a whole? And what role do you see women and youth playing in this transformation? Thank you for that question.
What do I envision? I think a lot. So when you think of, I think I need to backtrack. It's good that Olu, you're from Nigeria. So I think, I think in Africa, Nigeria is at the forefront of the creative industry, and I think you've all been a source of inspiration and hope all over, uh, all over Africa, and I think even beyond. But specifically coming to South Sudan, I always have a joke that in the like the back, how should I say, like some few years back when I came to South Sudan, there was no compound that you would bypass without seeing people seated on a very small TV and watching a Nigerian movie. And there is no way you can go on the road and you're not hearing a Nigerian song being played. Be weddings, be in funerals, you'll always hear a Nigerian song being played. And one thing that I've learned out of that is the Nigerians learned to own themselves. This is us, this is our culture, and this is what we are selling. Now, coming back home, South Sudan is, how should I? South Sudan is a country that is unique. I always say uniquely positioned. We have 64 tribes. I may not even mention 10 of those tribes. And every tribe has its own unique culture, its own unique sounds, its own unique attires, its own unique way of doing things. But this is something that from time to time it has never been tapped into. That I can confidently say. So it means we have a very rich, immense culture, but it's still untapped. Why? I think that dates back to, of course, to I think the 21 years of the civil war that we went through, and then South Sudan gaining independence in 2011. So at this point, all right now, it's like people are, should I say, grappling with different cultures and trying to find themselves. Who are we? And I think recently, 2 days ago, I read a post by a friend. He was like, it's only in South Sudan that you go out, you attend creative events, you're like, oh yeah, we have something unique about us, until you have your friend who is traveling abroad and you have no gift to get for them. Because it's like there's nothing specific that you can touch and say, this is us. So I think for us as a country to build on our creative sector, I think from time to time the question has been, what defines us? What makes Yine different from any other person, but it's uniquely beautiful and it can still be sold as a story to the world? I think through Goggles, we've even tried to engage in film production. Interesting. We've tried to engage in film production, but we've also realized that even when we're trying to engage, it's like the collaborators that we're working with who are doing film, it's like they're still grappling with also trying to find where do we fit, what's our culture. And I feel like that comes from the, should I say, lack of research. It's like as a country, we've not invested so much still in research to really understand what is it that we have from the roots that we can sell it to the world. But for potential in South Sudan is something that I say 100%. We have the potential, and of course, to develop the creative industry further, we can't miss internet. Investment, digital infrastructure is something that we can't miss talking about. Because in today's world, for us to sell, we need the internet. I believe the world, or some people even came to know, for example, about South Sudan because of the Olympics that we had in Paris, because our basketball team made it to Paris, and people were like, oh, actually, this country exists. That's how some people came to know that South Sudan exists. But I believe if we invest more, 100% in our infrastructure, and of course, I think there's also a need to still harness and build talent. That's really very important, because from time to time, I've gone to creative spaces, very small creative spaces, but it's like all of us in South Sudan, it's like we've limited ourselves to the donor community. So if I get funding, I implement something. When funding is over, I go back. And I think this takes me back to the previous question of finances. How do we go beyond just getting these resources and building ourselves beyond that? We can self-sustain. We can even attract investors based on what we have as a country. So I think so much, I don't want to use mentorship, but building that capacity is really very important, because there's a lot of untapped potential in South Sudan. 13 years of independence, I think we have so many 1,000 years to live on earth, and there's a lot to exploit in terms of talent in the creative industry. Yeah.
Thank you. I think, Dennis, you might want to
go
over another question.
Thank you, Yine. I just thought that, we're trying to pick up the best name for our webinar, but now we understand that you have proposed, even a better variant, like South Sudan, a country of untapped opportunities, or the rich land of untapped opportunities. Yes, which is fully true. We understand we understand that we are a bit running out of time, and we have quite a few questions left, but I would like all to choose from those questions that we have prepared, like the most effective one that would help to dive into those untapped opportunities, at the same time to leave them untapped, provoke everyone to like bring more attention towards South Sudan and its treasures.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna hover between the future trends in African creative tech, and also look at maybe collaboration, because one of the things that would be pivotal to see progress would be collaboration with other stakeholders. So my question would be,
Sure.
looking ahead, what key trends in emerging technologies and creative industry will shape the future of Africa's startup ecosystem? The question being, how can young innovators and entrepreneurs be prepared to lead this development? And I hope that encapsulates, my final question. Dennis, is that looks more like it? Yeah.
That's perfect. Also, taking into consideration that probably the cross collaborations are the future. So you're combining two questions into one.
Yeah.
Cross collaborations. What should I mention? It's a combination of one thing, potential. So I think for me, for of course, the trends can't exist without technology. So I think I'm going to go a little bit back to technology. So I think this is just like at a national level, at the authority. I think one main thing that we are pushing at it's the establishment of data centers across the country, because we realize that it's very central. If we are to move into the creatives, we'll definitely need a place where such kind of information is stored and kept safely and accessible. So cross collaborations, establishment of data centers, digital infrastructure has been very, very, very central, like investment in the sector. We have currently a project by World Bank, which is supposed to run fiber across South Sudan. So for me, I'm really very excited to see that that project will be fully implemented, because I think that will change a lot of dynamics. Then also, interestingly, in South Sudan, I think the most accessed and used online platform is Facebook. Yeah. So for since last year and this year, the authority has been really in very extensive like discussions with Meta to see if they could actually bring their servers to South Sudan. It's like we have no choice than to push for that. And currently we are at a stage of trying to put together the the data center where Meta, of course, we talked to YouTube. There was a highlight about TikTok and Google, if they could really have their servers in country, so that at least content creators, creatives who want to earn money and put their content out could earn something out of that. So investment in the sector is very key, because when we go to emerging trends, we'll never avoid AI. AI has come.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and I think there is a very interesting thing that happened in South Sudan. I think a few months ago, it was about one of the telecom companies when they started generating their ads using AI, and people are like, "No, these are not South Sudanese. South Sudanese have 5 fingers and not 4 fingers," and there was a lot of backlash, of course, from the public. They're like, we have beautiful models. This country is known as one of the countries, I think, out of 50 top models worldwide, we have like around 11 who are well known, like South Sudanese. We have models. Why can't they just pay models so that they're the ones who are being used on their ads? But at the same time, I know maybe the company was also looking at how can we take advantage of the latest technologies, and at the same time continue to do what we do best. So I see AI coming through, and I think I don't want to move to blockchain, but I think augmented and virtual reality, for me, I think it's going to be top tier. If looking at our rich culture and rich history, I feel like that is going to demo, how should English word? That's going to change the way we actually tell our stories as South Sudan. So I see AI coming in very handy. I see augmented reality coming in 100% very handy in South Sudan.
Thank you so much, Yine, for your time, for the inspiring replies, and a great conversation. Several more friends of yours and your colleagues are sharing their gratitude towards us. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your
Yes.
for admiring our common initiative. So, yes, let me remind that this webinar series is designed to be a cornerstone of the Africa Creative Tech Initiative, providing young African entrepreneurs and creatives the tools, inspiration, and connections needed to succeed in a rapidly evolving global landscape. And I'll be happy to hear maybe closing remarks from Yine and Olu, since we have 1 more minute left. And
Oh my,
still
1 minute.
still the whole life beyond.
Wow. Okay,
Let's
one
hear
remark.
your
I hope it
closing
won't.
remarks,
I hope
Yine.
it
Yes.
won't be long. I hope it won't be long. But I always believe in. I always believe in now. I always believe in local solutions that I know it's not coming out, like I'm just so excited. In the breathing. So my last
You
remark,
got
I
this.
think, goes to, yes, my last remark, I think, goes back to, I think, for us to driving inclusion in Africa. And I feel like, of course, designing global solutions always start with us solving our problems at our communities. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Yine. Olu.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Yine. And for me, these are my closing thoughts. And the fact that these webinar series is more than just a conversation. It is the cornerstone of the Africa Creative Tech Initiative, because our goal is to equip young entrepreneurs and creatives like those in South Sudan and in other countries within Africa with the tools, the inspiration, the connections that they need to thrive in an ever evolving global landscape. We believe, together with Fuelarts and Story Chest, that Africa's creative and tech industries hold immense potential to reshape the future. And by fostering innovation, collaboration, and entrepreneurship, we're positioning Africa to be a leader in both cultural and technological revolutions. Now, let's be open to collaboration. Let's innovate with purpose. Let's celebrate Africa's cultural narratives and invest in the next generation. Join us next time as we continue this journey to empower Africa's next generation of leaders in creative and technology industries. Together, we can unlock the future, the full potential of African innovation and creativity. Thank you. Back to you, Dennis.
Thank you so much, Olu. Thank you so much, Yine. See you in a while.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you for
Yine.
Good
having
Thank
luck.
you so
me.
much.
Good luck,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you,
Thank
Dennis.
you.
Well done.
Bye.
Bye.